the goal was just to, the context for this is we felt like, especially in this market, thankfully now there are lots of different conversations happening surrounding food and beverage, hospitality, etc. And we just want to be able to kind of explore different areas that help businesses succeed, entrepreneurs thrive. And clearly, as we've both learned over the last several years, a critical piece of that is the little details from marketing, advertising, public relations, etc. I'm really just curious, especially given your experience and how you've been able to shift gears over the last little while. Different factors you think really matter in the long run for these businesses that they might not think about as they're trying to get something up and running, as we've learned the hard way the last few months. But also as a whole, just what do you think the guests of these establishments don't take into consideration that happens behind the scenes to make those happen? Dan, the proprietor, is very quick to say that one thing he realized right away when trying to acquire the wine loft and revamp it after Sammy retired and try to give it new life was, we have to try 100 different ways to reach a person, and only one or two of them might actually work. Because it's not just, we'll put a mailer in the mailbox anymore. Obviously, right. Technology has just accelerated all of that. So just really curious, and take that as you will, but from I'm trying to help businesses succeed standpoint, how has your work changed, especially pandemic and everything included?
Yeah, you think about what the pandemic did, and it changed consumer behavior greatly. We were already heading into that, but the pandemic really accelerated. Right. Consumers now make more informed decisions. They do more research. They're informed. They know everything. And it's always been said, you get one chance to make that first impression, and it's more important than anything now. I know what business owners go through, where you go through the delays and inspections, and you wanted to open a year ago, and it's, a year and a half later, and you're still trying to open.
Right.
But the key is you have to have all the basics down, and you have to be ready for that. It's like you said, consumers, they might not be on Facebook, but they may be on Instagram. They probably threw your mailer away because it's 2021.
Right.
You have to reach your consumer and figure it out. A lot of people too, they're like, well, I do Instagram. Well, your past 6 posts, I probably didn't see any of them because Instagram does not like anybody, apparently.
Well, but to that point, do you think, is it the role of a proprietor or their operator? Should they be the ones that dive in to understand how that algorithm works?
That's where your marketing person comes in.
Exactly.
The pandemic, you saw businesses and the struggles that they went through and still are going through, and budgets are tight, and marketing tends to be one of the first things where it's like, if we have to cut something, it's going to be that.
We'll do it in-house.
Exactly. You know what? We got a guy or a girl or a lady. But the marketing is your key component. I always equated marketing to the marketing person gets the person in the tent. Your product and your business is what keeps them in the tent. So it doesn't really matter how amazing your business and product is. If people aren't coming there, they're never going to find out. So you have to have the right messaging to drive a consumer in there.
What do you think is the content that tends to stand out above the rest right now? I mean, obviously it's constantly changing, but what tends to be the stuff that people gravitate towards the most?
I feel like, especially in this last year, anything where you make an emotional connection or it evokes some sort of feeling or memory, that kind of connection right now seems to be the messaging that stands out the most to people. A lot of it, it all turns into white noise, and you see the same things over and over again. And, sometimes people go through the motions like, I got to post something today. And, it's not about the quantity of it, it's the quality of it. You want something that really resonates with your consumer, something that sticks in their head, whether it evokes an emotion, whether it makes a connection. Those are the types of messaging and the marketing that I feel like has been really successful. And we've seen that in the pandemic, especially, the Google commercial that made everybody cry. And, it evokes an emotion. And that's the kind of things that people are touched by right now.
So you're saying I should be posting more throwbacks to I love my time at Dixie's from 8-9 years ago, and
Yes.
all of the other Charlotte staples that
Yes.
we were very nostalgic over. I think one of my favorite memories, honestly, that are going to come out of quarantine was having the bracket debate
Yes.
of what is the establishment that we miss the most in Charlotte. But it's interesting because that kind of it feels like it's a two-edged sword, because now we also have an environment where people have all sorts of feelings about various establishments shutting down. And it seems like there's a lot more emotion being charged up and ready to talk about either what's causing it or what could have been done to prevent it. What's your take on this transition? I mean, obviously South End is certainly an area of focus, which we are adjacent to, but Charlotte as a whole, we're seeing tons of different things pop up.
Right.
And yes, sometimes they are on the same property that there were other things.
Right.
Is Charlotte one that is supposed to hold on to the nostalgia in the same manner as Embrace the Growth, or how do we approach that effectively?
Is there a way to find that happy medium where you appreciate the past and preserve the past and also make way for development? You would think, but it seems it always turns into some sort of debate or argument, right? Because, people are we want new things and we want development and look at Charlotte growing and moving forward. And that sometimes does come at a price. But then the same crowd is immediately like, well, I can't believe that we're doing this and we're closing this to bring this in. It's like, you can't have it both ways. So there's got to be some way in the middle to kind of realize that or come to an understanding.
Yeah, I think that especially during most of the pandemic, I was living over in Noda, and to see different murals pop up that were focusing on a lot of the culture, but also having historical ties embedded here and there, I thought was huge.
Yeah.
I think that was one area where no matter if they were newcomers or they're unicorns that were born and raised,
right,
they were able to appreciate it. But that really seems to be only one of the only circumstances so far that has seen that come about.
You tend to see the companies or developers or whatever that moves into a neighborhood, the most success is when they have kind of those community conversations and those community meetings where they can hear. I mean, I'm sure this has happened here in the neighborhood when you guys were moving in and setting up shop. They want to be heard and they have certain feelings about their neighborhood. They may give you, well, we want these 15 things. Obviously, you can't do that, but you can have that conversation, and maybe it does rethink, not necessarily like drastically reshape the business's plan, but it makes you take those things into consideration. Then the neighborhood sees it and is like, you know what? They've come into our neighborhood. They've heard our concerns. These guys care. They're trying to work with us.
I think that was fascinating here, given that we are adjacent to South End, we are technically considered in Dilworth. And part of the build out that really intrigued me was having Dilworth Historical get very particular over, okay, submit signage for approval, submit the planters that are going to surround the patio and how high they're going to get. Let's come out and measure them and make sure. Of course, as an operator, sometimes I'm sitting there like, why does that matter? But then to hear them also say, they look at what is of value here, and as things grow, then all of a sudden they mention that they're like, well, wait a minute, this place has an affiliation with the Jordan family going back. We want to be able to cherish the fact that it was his body shop.
Right.
At which point I say, well, I'm not going to touch those garage doors. In fact, I love them. And of course, as people now get vaccinated and come back out and venture back out, to open those up and have one big open space, everyone loves it.
Right.
That's an ambiance that everyone can buy into, no matter what stage they're in terms of, okay, feeling more comfortable to go back out and experience something.
Think about when you're a business, at the end of the day, you want to protect the brand. It's what a neighborhood and a community does. They want to protect their brand. It's a little different, obviously, because it's a neighborhood or a community, but it's the exact same thing, protecting that brand.
Yeah. And something that comes to mind as we're talking about this, as people are venturing back out, are you seeing any change in consumer behavior as it pertains to how they spend their time and their money when they're going, whether they're going out for lunch or nightcap, what have you? Is anything, all of a sudden a different priority on the scale when they're trying to decide where to go?
I said before about the fact that consumers now are more informed and they make more informed decisions. But along with that, you have this segment of the population that are making decisions about places that maybe they feel safe at, or maybe they think that business has just done such a great job with everything we went through in the past year and a half. They're spending their dollars in the places that they want to support. Now, on the flip side of that, we're also seeing the opposite too, where you're hearing the stories about restaurants. There was a restaurant yesterday that had 70 no-shows on a major holiday. And, I know this isn't new, and maybe we're just now hearing about it more because with social media and everything's just more amplified. But it's the same kind of thing. It's almost like a split behavior of some people are getting better and they're amazing, and some people are getting worse. Another thing, how do we bring those together?
Well, but then at the same time, in addition to that, you see restaurants trying to rectify it. So you have some groups that will say, okay, well, we're going to ask for a small hold on a card to hold your reservation. And people don't like that.
No, they do not.
and so you're sitting there like, well, we want to guarantee a higher probability of everybody showing, or at least giving us proper notice. And obviously things come up. But yeah, right. 70 no-shows is not one family emergency.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we've seen the most success for the businesses. I mean, this is going to become a reality. Businesses have no choice now, especially we may be more wide open now with restrictions and pandemic, but that doesn't mean that businesses are ready to handle that. They're not fully staffed. Everyone is just working hard and they're short staffed, and you may be able to, technically operate at 100%, but you can only do maybe 70% well. Right. So that 70% has to be there. It can't be, 60%. You can't have 10% no-shows. I think the people that have had the most success are the ones that, we're putting this policy in place and here's why. You've seen places do it and they don't really explain it. It's just kind of like, $25, $50, and there's the outrage. Right. And I understand that. But if, the business owner looks at you and says, we have to do something to protect ourselves. We need to ensure that our staff makes the money that they should be making. We need to make sure that we can operate the way that we should operate, and this is why this is in place. If you say that to a human being, 9 times out of 10, I'll give one that probably won't. 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, we understand.
It brings a different connotation to the word transparency and honesty. Mm-hmm. Certainly both in the past, as it pertains to hospitality. Some could certainly accuse different operators and whatnot in the past of, we're not really sure what's happening once that door closes. We're not, yes, is that fully disclosed on the menu of what all comes into it? It certainly seems like people are a lot more receptive to the idea of, I'm going to take my time as the owner and, even though my time is very valuable to try to go find these people and recruit them and everything else, I will take that few minutes and try to explain in a medium that will hopefully reach as many as possible. Right. Which of course then becomes the next thing. You can't just slap it on the window, because how many people are necessarily driving by right now? Yeah. We're still not back to that. Everyone's back to work in town. There are a lot of them are still working remotely. So I think that transparency goes a long way. It absolutely does. And you and I are very well aware of what businesses and restaurants and bars and everyone's going through. But what percentage of the population do you think understands that? Is it 40%? Is it 30%? And it's not necessarily their fault either. It's really easy to get really angry about 70 no-shows or, whatever. And it makes me furious. And then I think about the fact, if I talk to maybe a friend that's never been in this industry, they don't understand. It'd be like if a banker came up to me and, I don't know, ask me a math problem. That's a really bad analogy, but you know what I'm getting at. Yes. They just don't know. This is why I think that everybody should have to work in either retail or service industry at some point in their lives, because it'll make you a better human. I plan on making every child of mine that comes along wait tables or host or do something. Absolutely. To understand, just the empathy level that comes with it, but overall just the patience that you might not have been given as a gift, but you can learn and build a little bit of it up.
Yeah.
Just when dealing with other people in situations that you may not know that they're going through.
Yeah. It's the unknown. When people don't know what's going on, they tend to react pretty emotionally. That's just kind of a human nature reaction.
So it sounds like we have to help all of these operators, entrepreneurs, find ways to emotionally connect with consumers, to be transparent and explain the situation, why it is what it is. At the same time, still finding the fun things or the unique things that people find very interesting and worth spending a night out. That's a task. Would you say that you spend most of your week trying to help navigate that path?
Oh, absolutely. One of my clients that I work with, they opened up a brand new location in the last couple months, much later than they wanted to, because that's what's happening now. And one of the things that I've really worked on during these first months is to really open up that line of communication in our social media and everything that we do, so people can kind of get an idea of what's going on. When they decided to open the doors, I made it very clear about the fact, like, you know what, we're going to open at 9 a.m. and we're going to do 9 to 3 for this many days this week. We're not fully staffed. We're still training. We're still hiring. Just putting that out there. Kind of, if you set that expectation level, people know. If they go in kind of blindly and it's like, well, this is what I experienced. But if they know what to expect, it's going to be a whole different reaction and attitude.
And then to set those expectations, I feel like you still have so many different channels you have to check. How often is that call coming in saying, well, I looked up Google and it didn't say that. I looked on Yelp, it didn't say that.
Right.
Thankfully, I feel like there are several tools that, some food and beverage people may not even be aware of, or they just feel like it's too much of a cost to incur. But to be able to have everything broadcast effectively so that no matter where these people are picking up whatever app or book or what have you, that information stays consistent, that seems invaluable.
Some business owners will say, well, who cares? No one uses that. You need to make sure that wherever you can be found, it has the most current and updated information, especially now. Like we said, informed decisions. Consumers are making informed decisions. They are Googling, looking everywhere on social media. And, my mom's not on Twitter, but she's on Facebook and she probably has the yellow pages. Can't really control her phone book, but You see what I'm saying? Wherever you can be found, you have to have that updated information, because all it takes is that one instance where thought you opened at 5.
Could the argument be made that a consumer would consider that the first impression of the business rather than when they're walking in the door?
Oh, absolutely. You've probably seen a review where someone's written, you know what? I went at 5 p.m. and they don't open till 6. And it said on their MySpace page that they open at 5. You miss your MySpace page.
Of course, I really do.
But that's their whole impression of the business, and they haven't even walked through the door. Right. That's why, again, the things that tend to get chopped first are some of the most important in this world right now.
Yeah. The opening weekend here, perfect example. We were still 30% capacity. Those were the days. 9 p.m. curfew. And yet we had all of our permits and we were like, we might as well go ahead. It might just be, retail traffic, but let's just open the door and see what happens.
Yeah.
And the line went down the sidewalk, down to the abandoned gas station that's now going to be a hotel in a little while. And it was oh no.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we thought, of course, we have the Axios publicity and all these other things.
Right.
And sometimes you don't realize the weight that can carry. And so all of a sudden, it's so fascinating because one of the first reviews that was not a 5-star. So, of course, I'm sitting there trying to get a notification immediately.
Right.
The person simply said, well, we waited in line and couldn't get in. So don't take it for, put a grain of salt with it. He was honest. He was like, I'll update it as soon as I can get in and experience it. And I just sat there, and of course, this is day one of what is clearly going to be a stacked weekend.
Right.
And sure enough, the next go around, we turned to some of our partners from the cigar standpoint, and we said, listen, we got to figure out how to all of a sudden craft an experience in line so that as we navigate this limited capacity, people are still intrigued.
Right.
And in February, some people said they waited over an hour, but what partially killed that time was one of the guys came up and said, we appreciate you waiting to check it out. Here's a natural and a Maduro. I would like you to try one. Tell me what you think. Mm-hmm. And this is just on us as a thank you for coming to check out the guys that we have a new account with that we're trying to support. It went such a long way.
Absolutely.
So that was the one-off experience because thankfully someone spoke up and was just like, maybe we could find some way of, while in line, being willing to wait. It could happen.
Right.
And thankfully, it seems like the places when that does happen, I did not wait in line for prices this past week, but as I'm going past, DJ, coolers, all of a sudden it's a tailgate party, which typically you only see if you're trying to get barbecue in Texas. But all of a sudden it's this is a thing that all of a sudden you talk about what's going to be memorable. For some of these people, even though you don't want it to be that wait, they can say, we made best friends with the people in front of us. They got our round and now they're coming here for a double date every week.
Right.
It's you just never know how these things will affect people.
It's an experience. You create an experience for them that they probably wouldn't have had that night.
That's unbelievable. Well,
again, memory, memorable connection. See, it all goes back.
Emotional connection.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Well, is there anything that you would like to know about what we have been doing here?
Yeah, I want to know everything. Tell me all the things. It's very sexy in here. Very sexy, and it doesn't feel, I told you this when I walked in, when you think about a place like this, you think about a bunch of old white men sitting around smoking cigars. That's definitely not what this is.
No. And to what Dan's point was when we were making introductions, it's so fascinating to me to walk through and all of a sudden see this is a destination where girls are splitting a bottle of rosé at a cigar bar. To me, those things don't go hand in hand, but here it does, and people don't bat an eye. So it's been very fascinating. We have to give credit where it's due. We trusted Monica and the girls at Design Bar to come in and take the vision and run with it in terms of sourcing this stuff. You have tobacco leaf fans, you have gold curtains, and just really cool furniture. I have no idea where they sourced it. I know it took a while to deliver because COVID, but the end result was just spectacular. And so, you have some people, you go back to content, they were fascinated just by what was being shared from a design element. And so you have people that come in just to ask, can we do a photo shoot for our engagement because we don't have to decorate and the color scheme is what we're actually going for and you don't see it in town. So right off the bat, it seems to be appealing to people that we wouldn't have thought to market to for that reason. We love it. Obviously, we get to share this experience with so many others.
Right.
But it's something that you would not have put on the radar remotely. It was interesting during the build out. They immediately wanted to look at, all right, well, immediately big names come to mind in Charlotte of, should we go get this person from a beverage program standpoint? Do we go fetch these people that we know it's going to be quality, we can trust it, we'll pay the higher dollar, what have you. And it was odd because, I think part of it just comes with the experience in the market. But I said, wait a minute. At the end of the day, what happens here is you're going to want a team that is focused on helping each other, building each other up. And at least from my experience, a lot of places, you have one of those big names. Sometimes there can be resentment that comes, or feeling like, wait a minute, I'm getting passed up for an opportunity because this person has done something. And as a result, I kind of said, I kind of want to look outside that realm. I would just rather look for people that can clearly work well and be motivated by each other in a team environment. And thankfully, the feedback we've gotten from our guests has said that's exactly what this atmosphere needed. So that consistency, you don't have people resorting to, well, I only like the way she makes it, so I'm going to get something else because I only want that one the way she makes it. No. Everybody trusts what everybody makes here. And they're able to motivate and empower each other. And even to the point of friendly competition, one of the things we're doing in the month of July, every bartender is creating a barrel-aged cocktail to compete against each other.
Nice.
So to have a certain percentage of each proceed go to a local charity, but to motivate everybody to say, all right, test your theory, everybody gets assigned a different spirit. And that way we can incorporate, we have so many of the different liquor reps that obviously we have great friendships with.
Right.
But we're able to say, okay, we need you guys involved too, because we need that 5-liter barrel of your tequila, your vodka, your rye, and just explore. And, hopefully we get some really awesome cocktails that can end up being regular menu staples as a result of it. But the underlying theme is all the staff is completely bought in to helping see it succeed. And, during COVID especially, all of us saw friends that were like, I'm not sure I can rely on this industry for my well-being anymore. So what do? They start coding, they get their real estate license, they find these other gigs where, that can be the full-time. And maybe if I come back, it's on the weekends to get behind the bar, maybe. But for the most part, they've kind of said, see you later. And I'm hoping that by, this concept and a few others trying to lead by example of they can feel empowered, motivated, and rely on it to be a consistent source of income, that they'll consider still sticking around or eventually returning when they feel that it's the right time to do so.
Yeah, along with the consistency and reliability and knowing that they have a place, it's just kind of that thing too about you can't really put a price on happiness. If they're happy to be here and this is where they want to be, they will be here.
Yeah.
You have a great team, it sounds like. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's bizarre because you don't need many. Another thing that comes with this atmosphere, with people smoking cigars and really nice cocktails, this isn't a turn and burn. We're not trying to have every table turn 2 or 3 times in the course of an evening. It's not designed that way. If it did, holy cow, it would be a little more stressful.
Well, it's not your business model of like a high volume, you're pounding Miller Lights and Fireball. Like, it's not that type of place.
Right.
No offense against that type of place.
Exactly.
They all have their place and purpose.
And if it's a Monday night game, we may still venture out to those things come this next season. It's going to happen. But yes, thankfully, to be able to have some team members have that experience so that when it comes to an event, we waited a couple of months, never really had a formal grand opening. But then, I guess it was a few weeks ago now, we had our first Havana Festival. Food trucks pulling up, all different vendors and whatnot setting up shop. And that was the first time since the opening weekend where we had 200 people in and out of this building during the day.
It's amazing.
Which can be overwhelming. But you have team members that have that experience. Mm-hmm. They know how the bar needs to be set up to handle that volume. And they're able to make it not look hard at all to be able to accommodate all those demands. And even if behind the scenes they go, hey, all these cocktails, we need more rum, we need more mint, like these things are needed.
Right.
We're able to clean it up behind the scenes. The guests would never see that. They maintain a sense of professionalism where you're never going to see that, and we're able to always slide in what's next to be able to make sure they're set up for success. So it's been really cool to participate in that, but also see, it seems like the consumer demand, especially, and I'll tap into Dilworth here, it's a crowd that by nature, they probably want pretty good bang for their buck if it's their one night out away from the kids.
Right.
Or if it's like, well, this is our date night for the month, we better make it count.
Right.
Yes, they may have their local staple like Bonterra that they go to for dinner, but now it's one other element of, well, this could be a really cool nightcap or one stop before dinner. And it's something that they can take away where maybe it's a sacrifice. Maybe it's, well, we're going to start down the street so she can get her glass of wine, and he'll come out down here so he can have a cigar.
Right.
But everybody wins throughout the course of the night. well, we hope, we've got a little bit of everything here, beer, wine, and otherwise, but, we try to pair it up so that there's something for everyone at any point. And hopefully with Dan's vision for where the group goes in this area, it's just going to continue to add to address those voids in the market and to just interject with another idea of it's something that whether it's your coworker, your roommate, significant other, they'll appreciate coming with you.
Right. It's an exciting time for this industry. The next couple years, I know that it kind of stinks right now, and it's hard to find workers or be fully staffed or deal with an uneducated public. Not that they're dumb, they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. It's going to be hard, and it's hard right now. But it's exciting too when you think about what the next couple years will look like. This is going to be our roaring 20s. And I think it's going to also kind of reshape this industry and teach us a new way to do things. It's probably something that maybe some of these changes and adapting, it probably should have happened before the pandemic.
Sure.
The pandemic taught us that it has to happen. There's no choice. And I think it's exciting. And I think we're all going to come out, from all sides. I think we're all going to come out better from it and because of it.
I agree. I am curious, pertaining to Charlotte, do you see any particular suburb or market that seems to be the next big, not the next big thing, but the next big focus as it pertains to hospitality of this is something that we should all be paying attention to?
The next South End? Is that what you're saying?
But no, it doesn't even have to be that. We're adjacent to that, so
yeah.
we get to observe.
It's been, I've been here 17 years, and it's been kind of crazy to watch in these 17 years how everything has moved. And obviously South End is a very booming place right now, but what's exciting is you're seeing what started South End and those catalysts for South End. You're seeing that now in other places, whether it's Oakhurst or it's on the other side of Uptown on the north side, and it's going to start happening everywhere. And it's exciting because it's just not going to be one place. It's you want to be here and you want to be here and you want to go there. And I think that's going to be key in the continued growth and, more importantly, the success of Charlotte.
It's been interesting to me to try to look at, one of the other things I've noted people start doing is everybody loved the idea of food trucks for the longest time. And I don't think any of the consumer base ever assumed that, well, a lot of these are just incubators. And as they see that, all right, this concept is going to work, you have something like Optimus Hall come along or Camp North End or any of these other venues where those guys can have brick and mortar reasonably to then expand. Is that something that we should just expect to continue for the foreseeable future?
The big thing about food trucks and why they became so popular and started booming is this is going to sound almost corny when I say it, but it kind of made the American dream possible for so many people. You can't afford, not everybody can afford to go set up a brick and mortar. And the people that are making that transition or maybe doing both, it's a change and it's a lot of investment. But I think food trucks, you're still going to see that scene. It's going to change. You're going to see, you used to see a parking lot of a food truck Friday or whatnot. Everyone's in a big circle. But now you're seeing food trucks attach themselves to businesses. Maybe not the same business every day, but maybe, every Thursday they're at this establishment or whatnot. I think you'll see more of that. Kind of the duo, two businesses working together because they're both providing the other with something they can't do themselves, whether it's a brewery that can't do food and the food truck can't serve alcohol. But if you put them together, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Kudos though to every food truck though that's been able to do a brick and mortar, and I'm amazed. We have a lot of really talented chefs and a lot of amazing food truck concepts here, and it's been really cool to see them grow. You look at what the Fries has been able to do, and it's just unbelievable and amazing. And I love, it's almost like a cult following that they have.
That's true.
And they're really smart too. That's a really smart bunch over there.
Yeah. It's intriguing. Out front, it was almost by accident with what the gym, the previous tenant, had left the space. There is an area where a food truck can pull up. And, and I just assumed because of Food Truck Fridays that it was like, oh, you know what? I know these names. I know they're reliable. Like, let me reach out, touch base. And that's when I realized that this transition was happening, because so many of them have said, they're like, well, we're committed to that brewery through the rest of the summer. We're committed to that location through 2021. And it was intriguing to me because at first I was like, well, wouldn't you want that additional exposure? But then it's also just an affirmation of they recognize they have something that's really good and they need to capitalize on it. That being said, thankfully the rest of the summer we still have food trucks coming every weekend. Because even though we have a small kitchen here, so it is a little bit of everything. At the end of the day, the goal is just to simply offer snacks, offer things that go with the theme, but we already have really cool things, Bonte Sullivan's, etc., that are really close by, that we don't want to do anything heavy. And if anything, we want to be able to tie into the local community as much as possible. And those guys offer just different themes that can, completely transform a weekend. Last Saturday, we actually invited the truck that was here for the Havana Festival to come back because the Cuban food truck sold out in 4 hours the first day.
Wow.
And, for guys that, they admitted as a company, the brand, that they didn't necessarily get the best locations to start out, but the food was baller.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they get the offers to tee up accordingly to go do all sorts of fun stuff. And it's so cool to see that sort of growth.
The food truck, it's funny. I like this conversation about the food trucks because it has really evolved. And you think about the fact that a person, if they found a food truck that they love, they had to hunt them down almost and stalk them. Like, where are they going to be? And when there's maybe, it gives them stability. So they know where to find them. You know what? Tuesdays, they are going to be here. I know they're going to be here. I don't have to go searching on Facebook or MySpace or whatever social media. Found a way to bring up MySpace twice.
Hey, at the end of the day, we just want a song to play when people see our content. Yes. It is what it is. I miss it too. Yeah.
What was your song on your page? Do you remember?
MySpace, it was very much the Warped Tour days. When I was trying to grow my hair out and all the things I really regret nowadays. So I'm pretty sure it was something like Ohio is for Lovers. Something just real tearjerker, making me scream. What about you?
I feel like I change mine every day, so it's all over the place.
Fair.
The beautiful part of MySpace. You can just keep changing it.
It's true. All right. Cheers.
Yes.
I'm very grateful for you taking some time to join us here for a little bit.
Yes.
I'm sure that Rob and Joe are curious what you make of their cocktail creation here.
This is delicious. I love a mezcal cocktail anyway, so this speaks to me. And the raspberries, it's delicious. And it's not too sweet.
Right.
That was the thing that some people probably like, oh, it's too sweet. This is not sweet at all. It's perfect.
I love it. So yeah, that was certainly a focus here of just being able to look at, yes, it says whiskey and cigar bar. And we're going to focus on, as much as the state allows us to, try to get our hands on some really cool bourbon, scotch, and otherwise. But look at the location and look at our offering. Mm-hmm. We want to be able to make sure that, some of the best cocktails that move on the menu are vodka-based, gin-based, tequila-based, mezcal-based.
Yeah.
There are things, when people first walked in, the first barrel of our aging series was a Reposado tequila. Wow. And it was a Manhattan. And people are sitting there, they're like, but why? I'm like, because it should be all-inclusive.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, we love to be able to say, you're never going to see this 25-year scotch on someone else's back bar because they don't have the reason to do it. Here, we want to be able to educate you and give you a reason to say we're celebrating. Let's all do it, and also that to enjoy and sip on.
And I will tell you, I'm not coming here to drink your 25-year scotch. that does not speak to me.
Exactly. But mezcal and otherwise.
This does speak to me.
Same thing. Even though you might not be smoking, you can still get your smoke otherwise. It's very cool.
Oh, very well done. Very well done. That's a pro right there.
We've been able to figure out how to upsell in just about any way, shape, or form. I love it. Nikki, thank you for coming. Looking forward to many more awesome conversations in the future.
I love it. Cheers.